Welcome to the NCDWI Guide podcast, where defenders of the Constitution assemble to prepare for courtroom battle and firm owners gather to develop marketing strategies that will revolutionize the practice of criminal defense. Here's your host, the NCDWI guy, Jake Minnick.
Hello, fellow freedom fighters, and welcome to episode 258 of the NCDWI Guy podcast. On today's episode, I have guest Tony Lee from the law firm Mentor on the podcast. Tony is a guru of sales and intake conversions. Super excited to share the conversation that we had on today's episode. Tony is somebody that I have worked with closely in the past, helping us to optimize our Google profiles. He is an absolute machine when it comes to generating more value from the leads, from the clients, potential clients that are calling your firm. Tony is getting ready to lead a webinar exclusively for the Freedom Fighters audience that will be on September the 5th, which is a Friday at noon. Please feel free to reach out to me and contact me with information about that webinar. I'm also going to put a link to that webinar in the show notes, so check that out as well. Love to have as many people from intake, from marketing, for associates that are doing any type of sales calls. This is going to be basically 3 game-changing shifts to maximizing criminal defense conversion. So if you have anybody in intake and marketing, anybody that is doing consults at your firm, it's going to be beneficial to have all of those people on this webinar on September the 5th. Tony is also going to be at the Freedom Fighters Summit talking about sales in the criminal defense space, on conversions in the criminal defense space at the Freedom Fighters Summit. He's going to be available for conversations, is going to be very engaged throughout the conference, and is an absolute beast when it comes to all things business and marketing related. He has had hundreds of clients in all different practice areas, including criminal defense. So to get the one-on-one conversation time with Tony and to hear him speak at the summit, make sure that you get signed up. Look forward to sharing this episode with you and hope you take away from it as much as I did. Tony, it's been great to kind of get reconnected here over the last couple of weeks. Obviously have done work in the past, and I think the shining moment in terms of like our relationship and something that was just like the veil getting removed and like almost like a moment of like what's going on here is we had a conversation about probably a year ago where we were looking for help with our Google My Business profile listings, and you basically kind of walk through, what could be done to improve those listings, kind of like what that would look like on Law Firm Mentors, and then basically said, hey, why don't we do like a 3-month contract on this front? You guys can kind of like learn what it is that we're doing to kind of help optimize the Google My Business profile, and then you can use that for all of your other Google My Business profiles, and then kind of just keep trucking with it moving forward, which we have, and is just like a real difference in terms of LFM versus almost any other company that I've ever talked to that wants to like keep you engaged permanently. And with you, it was just like, hey, let's train you to get this information, do it in-house, and then you can kind of keep rolling with it. So yeah, really incredible suggestions and like easy to implement modifications on the Google My Business end. Great team effort on Law Firm Mentors end, but very much like a stark contrast to most kind of marketing based companies. So yeah, that was definitely like a one of those moments where I was like, "Where's the catch?" You know, like what? It was just
Yeah,
very
I think
transparent
it's
about it. So
yeah, I think it's nice that when you're coming to us, you came to us for marketing information advice. We're not primarily a marketing company, right? We created this marketing arm that does some marketing for our clients because they were getting really crappy service for years, and it was hard enough for us to keep up helping them vet out marketing companies. And for the work that I've seen over time, I would jump in, how much you're paying, what are they doing? I jump in and I look all these different factors that I know hits the Google business profile algorithm, and they're just not being done. So it was just, it's just about education, learning from, let's say, a financial advisor who's going to show you these things and tell you how to do all these different investments rather than going to just one type of investment guy, right? Who can only sell you what he has. Right. So they kind of force you in the box where we look at it a little bit differently. And again, for us, it's all about what moves your law firm forward, and whether that's you getting help now or later. Some people, most companies will always outgrow some part of their, marketing investment or different departments, other contractors or vendors that they have.
yeah, 100%. And I think being able to look at that from the back end of things, I think it's also helpful just because once you have some level of understanding about kind of how the back end of things is working, then you can do a better job vetting in the future. And so again, I think that was again such a powerful removal of the veil, because I feel like a lot of companies are very much like, just leave it on us. We'll take care of everything. And then it's like month over month, sometimes like first and second month, there's a lot happening. And then fourth, fifth, sixth month, it's like on autopilot and there's no changes or, differences getting done. And it's all like very simplistic, but because you're kind of not seeing the behind the scenes, it is, just a, like you feel kind of obligated to stay committed. And so again, from like an educational standpoint, like you just talked about, that was like such a difference from most companies that we've worked with.
Yeah, and I guess let me give all your listeners a tip here. The first thing I do when I see somebody getting Google Business Profile optimization from anybody, I go, okay, log on to your Google Business Profile, jump into the Performance tab, right, that they have, and then you want to be able to look at each month individually for the last 6 months. And then it goes back like 6 months. And then you want to look at and move to the calls. How many calls did you get, right? So if I'm with a company for 6 months, I'm paying $1,000 a month to optimize my profile, those phone calls that are tracked need to go up. Now, it doesn't track all the phone calls that come through because it tracks when someone uses their mobile phone and they hit call and they call the law firm. But so it's not an exact number of how many calls you got, because you definitely got more than that, but it's a good indicator that if they're doing the right work, that metric right there, that KPI is going to go up, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
huge.
a way for you guys to self-check yourself, because what they don't want you guys to do is understand this, because then you
Yeah.
guys rely too much. And then they're going to sell you on, look at how many people got to your profile, or how many people, if you're doing, national SEO, look how many people I got to your website. That doesn't matter if those people don't turn into calls and it turns into business, right? So they want to sell you the bells and whistles, but if you know what to look for, you can protect yourself. I've seen it a lot where we spent $60,000 last year and we're in the hole.
Yeah.
People tell me I got to spend more money, and I go in. You don't need to spend more money. Actually, you don't have a marketing problem. You have a sales problem, right? Cut your marketing. And I did that with one client. In the last 2 years, she actually did spend $60,000 because the company that she was with, she moved from one to the other. People just kept telling her more money, more money, more money. And then it's not more money. Let's fix your sales process. I actually cut all her paid marketing. In about 3 months, she started making more than she did with the paid marketing. And now we're going to turn it back on to grow from 500 to a million to 2 million.
Yeah,
So,
no, and I think that's probably maybe honestly like a good transition to what we're kind of like focusing on today, because I think so many of us small business owners really focus on, like, if we want to increase our revenues, then we need to increase our calls. We've got to get more potential clients coming in the door, and there is some level of truth to that. But I think that a lot of kind of like an easier fix immediately to a revenue problem is to either increase your fees or to have a higher conversion of the clients that are already calling you. And so that's kind of where we're going to focus on today, is on that conversion rate. And so, I think maybe my question for you to kind of kick things off is, why is that something that is not really like a point of emphasis among firms that you guys have worked with at the outset? Like, why is conversion not like kind of this killer place where it's like, we've got to get this right?
So I think that in terms of law firms in general, they will lack process systems and data, which are absolutely the most important things to be efficient so that your operations cost is low and your production is high. Now, most law firms, they don't know how to track. They don't know what to track is probably the biggest problem.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then they don't know how to track it. And even if they have, let's say, a CRM that can track it, it's usually not built out from when they get it to be able to see the things that they need to see. So when my clients come from wherever they come from to me, and let's say they have a Lawmatics, right, I'll say, okay, this is how Lawmatics needs to look, so that I can, when we're on a call, I need you to give me this piece of data, this piece of data, this piece of data, then I can tell you exactly what's wrong and how to fix it. But that's why it's so important. But really, it's just the lack of understanding how powerful data can be. Because to your point, right, even in criminal law, I've seen it where law firm owners, they'll maybe sign 25% or 50% of their potential new clients onto a consultation call, and they're not realizing that should be almost 100%. So, because if I'm calling your law firm because I have a criminal case and you're offering me a free consultation, how are we not able to sell that? Right? The expectation is that my team would sell that 100%. Will we always hit that? No, of course not. But we're going to be damn close every single month. Now, that 50% moves to 100%. You just doubled your revenue with one piece of conversion data, right? When you know what the goal should be, and then you just got to figure out how to fix it.
Yeah, I think and again, in terms of like finding those key metrics, like what are some of the biggest like kind of key performance indicators or metrics that you focus on with a client that comes through that's looking to increase their conversion rate?
Yeah. And I'm going to speak just directly to your industry and your practice area here, because it is different from practice area to practice area. But for criminal law, we want a 100% qualified lead to consultation. Now, sales qualified lead is an important metric and data that we are not capturing here mostly. Now, that's the first step. Reason is because let's say you're paying for marketing. And let's say you're paying $1,000 a month for 10 leads. Great. For 10 leads. Now, what if only 2 of those leads are qualified? What is your cost per qualified lead is how I want to judge your marketing company based on the marketing company, right? Because all these crappy leads that you're getting to me, they don't make me any money. So number one, that's an important fact. And then also, we can't grade your sales team, right? Judge your sales team on 10 leads when only 2 of them are qualified. So we need to have that being the first point of tracking that we want for all leads that come in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Now, for criminal, almost all you guys do free consultations, right? So if you're doing free consultations, I want a 100% conversion rate. That is the goal every day for my team. Now, if you are a consultation fee-based criminal practice, then you want to be able to book that at 75%. So 50%, 100% of it's free, 75% of it's paid.
And in terms of, maybe to just kind of veer off for a second on that front, because we do free consultations at the office, and I would say most criminal defense lawyers that I've talked to have done free consultations, but there are some that charge for consultations. And so just in terms of like criminal defense firms that you all have worked with, do you encourage, kind of charging for a consultation? And if so, why? Beyond just obviously being able to generate fees.
We actually push almost all law firms to do paid consultations except PI and criminal.
Okay.
That is just two practice areas that are typically not done that way. If you have a more of a maybe a high end criminal, you may or may not. But again, the idea is that for, let's say, even a high end criminal case, right? We're trying to get the case itself, not trying to get the consultation fee.
Right.
So in this case, I wouldn't rock the boat on what's the norm out there, especially if you're a high volume, community based law firm there, doing a lot of DWIs and things like that. I wouldn't rock the boat. I would just have a really good sales process and intake to make sure every single one of them gets a consultation. And then when they move to the consultation part, we want your team, because it's free, to book at least 50% minimum.
Yeah, and I think that's, one of the things that we've kind of, again, I'll just put this in more of like a personal vein, struggled with in terms of like the consultation side of things, because we kind of have like a call back mentality from lawyers, as opposed to like a specific booked time. But then it becomes a little bit difficult to kind of see what was the actual number of clients that confirmed a consultation meeting time. Do you guys have any thought process in terms of having like a kind of appointment system, and kind of how that works with criminal defense lawyers? Again, like, I'm not saying we're completely odd ducks when it comes to consultations, but it can be difficult to find that consistent time of setting up meetings, because there's just like such a court heavy docket. So is there any kind of like tips that you have in terms of what does it mean to book a consultation when you're talking about like a specific appointment time?
Sure. I'm going to give you guys some tips. It's the first thing is that we have to understand the speed that we book them, right? The quicker we see them, the better off we're going to be, because you just booked a free consultation. So therefore, when I hang up the phone as a potential client, I'm probably calling somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. Because I know that I'm getting something that's free. I haven't satisfied my need of getting information yet. So I'm going to keep searching. So if you're an attorney who is really busy, you can't see people 3-4 days, your conversions are going to suffer right off the bat because of that.
Yeah.
100%. It's going to be hurting. Now, there are ways that you can, depending on what it is, you can get a higher show up rate. Number one, we want to build a better relationship, right? If we build a better relationship on the front end with our intake, they're more likely to show up. Number two, I would say if you have a high percentage of people falling off, right, you could even potentially say, we will take a deposit for your consultation. You just have to show up, we'll give it back. You could say, we'll charge you $100 or $50, and we'll apply it to your retainer if you decide to move forward with us. There are different things in there, but mostly I would say the speed part is going to be the number one killer in conversions, because they're out there still looking until they speak with somebody that's going to give them enough value to say, hey, I want to move forward, or at least understand their situation better, because that's what they're searching for, is information. So that will be the most important thing, is you have to get, as an attorney or a law firm owner, your schedule's got to be free for those consults as soon as possible, even same day potentially.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's something that we emphasize, with all the lawyers here at the office, is that the speed of response is everything at this point. I mean, it's just you got too many other available lawyers out there that you're competing against. So I think that's huge. What have been like some of the kind of biggest gains in the firms that you've worked with when you focused on conversion? Where have like some of the biggest areas of improvement kind of been typically seen?
Here is the number one thing I saw when I entered this industry of sales coaching here, and is that most attorneys, law firm owners, you guys do not hire real salespeople. Mm-hmm. And so that position is going to suffer. You will put in that position receptionist, paralegals, and just legal assistants, or whoever else is available at your law firm to pick up these sales calls and do them. And I would say 8 out of 10 times, it's not going to work out in your favor, because most people that do sales by choice, it's because they have a natural skill that they were born with, that they want to do it. Now, if you hire somebody right? And they don't have the skill and they have the desire to be better, you can probably get them to be a pretty good salesperson. Now, try putting someone who doesn't want to do that at all, that you said, hey, we don't have enough bodies, you got to do this. And they're not a salesperson at all. How well do you think they're going to do that job? And that's where I've seen conversions really, really tank. And you're costing your law firm, probably 70% revenue from just that alone. Because if you don't have consults, at least on the first initial stage, you don't have revenue.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I
So
think
that would be the first thing. Hire real salespeople, because if I have a real salesperson to train, I can get them hitting conversions within 30 to 60 days every single time. And if I don't, if I'm trying to train a non salesperson to do either intake or consultations, they'll struggle. They'll struggle for months to even get to par, right? And in this industry, we're not hiring salespeople to get to par. We're giving them bonus to perform above par. That's what we want. So hire real salespeople, because it makes a world of difference in getting up to speed to hit the conversions that you need, because that's where all your money is.
And what is the kind of like, I think that because in our like lawyer brains, like, if you've got to have somebody that can kind of, effectively manage a case and, do, potential, I don't know how many firms use like, paralegals to actually write briefs. Like most of my practice is very paper free. Like there's not a ton of paperwork getting done. So that, that's not a huge issue on my end. But in terms of like kind of flipping that switch to like, the focal point should be for salesperson versus paralegal when it comes to intake, like how big do you kind of see that as being like, kind of, we gotta make this move like right now.
Yeah. So some paralegals can be built to do sales, but most of them will not be able to do it. Just like how many attorneys out there do you think are converting at par?
Right. Yeah.
Not many, actually.
Yeah. 100%.
A lot of the attorneys that I've come on that have done consultations, when I see them, they're at like 25 to 30% conversion rate. It takes me about, for them, if they're fairly, have a sales mind, 30, 60 days, get them up right to about 70%, 65, 70%, which is where they need to be. Now, a law firm owner has a ton of legal advice. A paralegal has the same type of mindset because they're dealing with all these cases. Doesn't mean they're going to be any better than an attorney to do sales, right? So I personally, let's say we take out the rare cases on both sides, right? If I had I'll take a non-attorney or non-attorney salesperson over a paralegal any day, because I know that I can train them in a way to put them through a sales process and teach them the nuances and sales psychology of dealing with somebody, looking to purchase a high ticket item, like a $5,000 retainer or more, right? I'll take them any day.
Yeah, I get, and I think, in terms of, I think, I mean, if you're trying to increase, again, your revenues, sales is like basically primarily where that's at, what you're quoting, how much you're collecting on current cases, the number of people that are calling that convert, like all those things are just immediately within your control based on the calls that you're currently getting. And so in terms of like upping the game for anybody that's on the team, whether that's, yourself as the firm owner, whether that is, a associate, whether that's a paralegal, some receptionist that's answering the phone, what does kind of like the kind of training program look like that you all do to kind of help get people up to par, as you were just kind of like putting it? Like what does that look like?
Okay, so we at Law Firm Mentor, we have a 10-hour sales course for intake specialists and then a 10-hour course for legal sales. So we have both sides, right? Intake and consultations. We have a training course for those. I have countless videos that I've done trainings for my law firm owners and their intake people. So we have videos for them to watch. And then what we also do after they do that, we build them custom scripts for their team to follow. And these scripts, guys, you hear the word script and you're like, oh, I don't want to be that robotic. No. So the script is for the purpose of them understanding how to put somebody through the process. Mm-hmm. Now, as they understand and get used to the script, they're going to remove the I need to say this, like this, and understand that I need to put them through this process of getting them from, putting them through a warm welcome, setting the stage all the way to, booking the consultation or, getting a signed engagement agreement. So understanding how to put them through that process is the most important, but having a script gives them the confidence over time. And then the practice to put them through this is what's most important, because the script is not like a rigid thing and is meant to be used to develop a conversation, not to be an order taker. So we give them a script, and then after that, it's about listening to their calls. If you do not have call recording for your sales team, that is a huge, huge no-no. That is the most important thing that you can do, because if I listen to one sales call after I given someone one training, I can tell them right away if you should dump them or if you should keep them. And that in itself can save you guys months of low conversions and loss of a lot of money. So call recordings is probably the number one thing. And the other thing is that if you're not versed as a law firm owner to coach them, you have to find someone who can actually coach them on that call. Because if you're not a great salesperson, you can't coach someone to be a great salesperson. So that would be the last part of it, that you have to be able to get, the personnel to be able to teach them how to do it right.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, we did as a kind of team, both myself and then all the people on intake went through the intake mastery course that Allison had put out, and that was just killer information. I mean, just such a wonderful kind of way of walking through, people's hurdles, sticker shock, objections, just different kind of characteristics of intake that are helpful. In terms of, so I highly recommend like the intake courses that you were just referencing. In terms of like follow-up and that kind of continued ongoing, coaching, what does that look like in terms of, firms that you've seen kind of take the most success away from that? Because I think it's easy to go through one of these trainings. And again, I'll be upfront on our end. We've done this in the past, and then I would say kind of taken our foot off the gas and basically kind of coasted. And then you get out of the habit of listening to those follow-up calls. Mm-hmm. You get out of the habit of like thinking regularly about sales, or, hey, we need to change the script because the outcome that's available in this particular county has changed because we've got a new DA that's running the show. So we need to adjust kind of what the script looks like. What does that kind of like cadence look like in the firms that are doing it the way that you guys recommend?
So when I got here, follow up, especially with law firm owners, is pretty terrible.
It's awful. Yeah.
You guys are, you do the sales call, and it's like you guys have this psychology that I can't follow up because then they think I'm begging for business, or you guys are too busy to follow up. So if they don't close or call you back, that lead is gone. Right now, my mindset becoming, being in sales for over 20 years now, and, managing and building a lot of sales teams and processes, is that my mindset that I try to instill into all my salespeople is that if I give you my time to be able to offer you information and a service, and you haven't given me an answer, you owe me an answer, right? Because at the end of the call, if you say, hey, you need to think about it, and I can't get past that objection, let's say, whatever objection you give me, I'm booking a follow-up call right on the spot to get an answer from you. And if you miss that, I'm going to call you a ton of times until you either tell me no or you block me. And I'll take either, because if you block me, that's okay. I'll move on to the next one, because now I don't have to waste time following up on you. So that is my mentality, is that you owe me an answer. Now I'm going to get it, but I'm going to get it in a nice way with the type of messaging and email responses and text messages I send you. It's not going to be that aggressive on the messaging, but my mentality is going to be very aggressive. So you're going to get multiple calls within the first, multiple calls maybe in a day following that follow-up time period.
What is the way that you, sorry to cut you off, Tony.
Nope. Yeah, I was just saying you're going to get multiple calls even in a day from me, right? Because in the morning, going to call you, not going to leave a message. Afternoon, hey, Jake, I had called you this morning, didn't get you, but you told me you wanted me to reach out to you on this day. I just want to make sure I don't drop the ball. So please give me a call back. I'll also text you. We can set up a call if you're busy, for the rest of the day. We can set up for tomorrow. Whatever it is, you want to be able to, the language needs to be, hey, You asked me to do something, I'm doing it for you, and then you want to make sure that you're doing a good job at it.
Do you see a lot of the firms that are kind of really hitting hard on that follow-up, automating follow-up as well? What does that look like
Great question. Automation, guys, is amazing in keeping yourself in front of them, but it's not the best to close. Why? And the messaging of automation matters too. So if the automated messages go out and it says, and we want them, okay, we definitely want text messages in emails, but for me, that's just for me to get you on the phone.
Right.
Not to say, not automated message cannot be, hey, Jake, we spoke with you, want to see if you want to move forward. Jake, here's some information about what you're looking for. Can we, we sent you an engagement letter. Do you want to move forward? That is not it. Our mindset needs to change that. And the psychology is that it's a no already, right? We have to go in this assuming that it's already a no. So my messaging needs to change in the automation going, hey, Jake, we had a consultation. Let's say, you had a consultation and let me be maybe the intake person that's going to be following up for you, Jake, because you're the law firm owner, you did the consult. It would be, you had a consultation with Jake. It seems like you haven't made a decision yet. I'm sure you have more information, more questions or concerns you may have. Can I get you onto a call, a 5 or 10-minute call with him to answer any questions you have so that you can make the best decision for you? And in the way that I call them, or the messaging is always going to have that sentiment, not do you want to move forward? Because, hey, Jake, you had a consultation with Jake. Do you want to move forward? Nope. Email you back, no. How do you come back from that? You can't, right? So the idea is to not get a yes or no, assume it's a no, and get the idea is always to have another conversation, because in the conversation is where you can sell people. You can't sell people, why? Can you sell value through an email or a text message? No, right? Yeah. But if I get you on the phone with me and then we can address some of your problems and your concerns, then I can start building value again, which will sell you.
Yeah, it's funny because, I definitely feel like I tap into that, like, just basic understanding of human nature frequently when it comes to district attorneys. Like, if I've got an important case that I want to bounce off of a DA, then I go sit down and meet with them. I don't send them a text message like, hey, would you be willing to dismiss this case in exchange for community services? Like, no, I want to go in. I want to have like a full conversation. I want to have your undivided attention when you're not dealing with all these other people in the courtroom. I want to be able to present my case and build that personal connection versus just like, the email, yes, is easier and sometimes it works, but at the end of the day, it's like that's an easy thing for the DA to ignore. It's an easy thing for the DA to say no to because they don't have to tell you to your face, like, I'm not willing to do this. So again, it's kind of interesting because I feel like, again, even personally, the same mentality doesn't apply with a potential client, but it's a lot harder to say, I'm not going to move forward with you over the phone than it is to like send a message or ignore an incoming email or message that's coming in. So I think we all understand that is how human beings work. It's just you have much more of a difficult time saying no to someone when they're live with you versus message back and forth.
Yeah. And if you kind of go into the mindset that I was mentioning to you, you're going to be ready for objections. Right. And that's where we should always be, is be ready for objections. It should never catch us off guard. So it kind of programs your mind to be in a sales kind of mentality in that way. And I say sales, but I prefer the word advisor to people, because if we ask good questions, have them find their answers themselves, lead them that way, then we're doing a better job than just regular salespeople. But in terms of the follow-up kind of idea there, right, of the automation that you were talking about, I want them to get the emails and text messages so that when I call them 9 times, is the average 7 to 9 times is how many times you have to call someone on follow-up to get a sale, right? Anybody can search that online. It's a well-known sales statistic since I started 20 years ago, and hasn't changed too much. But the idea is that you're going to see my emails, you're going to see my text. I'm going to call you 4 or 5 or 6 times. On the 6th time, you haven't blocked me yet. You know exactly who's calling you, but now you actually have a free minute, and then you pick up the phone. That's a win. That's why you have to call so many times, because you have to catch them at the right time. So that's why the volume of calls is super important during this short period of follow-up that you have before you get completely ghosted, or they go with somebody else, or they change their mind completely.
Yeah, that's huge. In terms of like just mindset side of things, I mean, I definitely think that there is a block with non-sales people about, I'm bothering this person, or they're gonna, be, upset. So in terms of like developing that mentality of like, yes is the best answer, but no is the second best answer. Like I would prefer a no to the ghosting. Like how do you, kind of coach towards, follow up is critical, and overcoming like the mental blockage of the
Yeah.
non-sales person that is doing sales to kind of get through that.
Okay. We're gonna micromanage without micromanaging is what I say, right? So my goal and my conversion goal for my team is going to be at a certain level where you can't hit that unless you do follow up. It's going to be a known fact, unless you're an absolute rock star superstar, right? That is, maybe one of the best salesperson to step in. Sure, you may be able to. Most people, you're going to need to do that follow up to be able to hit your conversions on a regular basis. And for my team, I'm going to track how many follow ups you got on the calendar or you closed as a consultation specialist the months before, right? We're going to track that as a team so that everybody knows. And if I have a big sales team, because we're a big criminal law practice, and let's say we have 3 intake people and 2 consultation specialists, or however, I'm having everybody's numbers and conversions in the open all the time, because we're going to have a team goal, right? So individually, you have to carry yourself, but you're going to have to help the team too. So therefore, when numbers are in front of people all the time, people can't hide from that. And if you're a salesperson that wants to hide from your conversions and data, you can't be on my team anyway. So either way, you're going to let me know that this is going to work out or it's not. So by putting those expectations in place, you're going to generally get the results that you want, either one way or the other. And then if your team, is not getting there, then of course you got to look at sales training and things like that. But, that would be the first start. That's how I like to kind of run it, is recognizing follow-up wins, right?
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, I think that's so important. I love the, the again, I would agree that one of the biggest hurdles for lawyers is basically the lack of numbers at their fingertips. Business owners is the lack of metrics, key performance indicators. Oh, yeah. But then I think that secondary to that is it's like you can have all of the numbers and metrics present, but really like not talk about them in a meaningful way, and then they're still just as meaningless. So like having that like scoreboard style that you're talking about, where it's like this is front and center, like you're either on par with other people that are kind of in the same role, or you're a rock star, or you're well below. That in and of itself is just so hopefully motivating to be like, this is not cutting it. Like, you can have a bad week, maybe even a bad month, but if it's like a bad 6 months, it's like, that's a problem. Like that's something that's clearly beyond just the, random phone calls that you've had coming your way. There's something bigger issue to fix. So,
and here's a tip for all the listeners out there. How do you know your team is doing follow-up, right? Here's a tip. Most of your voice over IP systems and they have call logs, right? So the easy thing to do is you check your team, how many dials out did they make that day? Because if they're just sitting there taking inbound calls, they're basically order takers, right? They're not fulfilling the whole sales role, because follow-up, you got to pick up that phone and got to call. So their phone systems, right? That is a metric that I track with some of my clients to make sure that their people overseas are doing the work, right? Mm-hmm. So they'll have to track how many outbound calls they made that day, because then I know that they have to do follow-up. So there are things here that we can, if we tell the team, hey, these are the expectations, here's how we're going to measure it, you just let them do the work after that, because as long as they know, they're going to look at this every day, and at the end of the week, it's going to add up how many calls I took, how many outbound calls I made, how many consultations I booked, and I have these. Well, they know that they can't hide for too long. And that's the key, is to micromanage without micromanaging.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, you kind of already talked about this a little bit. Not a little bit. Like we've definitely had some issues that have seen in conversion rate, but in terms of kind of the biggest mistake that criminal defense lawyers make, specifically when that causes their conversion rates to decrease, what would you say is like the number one issue?
Okay, so I'll say this for all practice areas, actually. Doesn't matter what practice area you're in. The number one mistake that I see, or I'll say The biggest one, the easiest one to fix is that at the end, when you ask them, you don't ask them to move forward. And then you basically, or you send them an engagement letter without them asking, and then you hang up the phone. Okay. So that process needs to change. And if you want to increase your revenue by 15% immediately, do what I'm saying right now. At the end of your consultation, you're going to ask them if they want to move forward. If they want to move forward, you need to have your engagement ready and how to pay your retainer, being able to send it out on the spot. And it's going to go something like this, right? I'll role play you. Jake, all right. Is our law firm the one that you want to choose to represent you?
I think so.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to is it text or email better to send you the engagement letter and the retainer?
Text message, please.
Okay. I'm going to text it to you, but I'm going to wait on the phone just so if you have any questions, right, I can answer those for you, because the next step is I want to be able to book the next call with you and the attorney to set up your first call, right? Because we want to get moving on this right away. We don't want to give the defense any extra time to start building their case if we can start doing research ourselves now. Why don't you, I'm going to say that, why don't you open it up? That's it. If they say yes, why are we letting them off the phone? We're actually doing them a disservice by letting them off the phone, because they will get off the phone. Their natural doubt will go in their head. They'll speak to somebody, get another email or a text from somebody else they reached out before. Then all of a sudden, they don't know who to choose. Then they wait more time, which gives them less time to work with the right attorney. And then they may choose someone who's not you, which is the worst choice they can make. So you're doing them a disservice by not clearing their mind, right? We need them to shut down their search. So by them signing an engagement letter, giving you money for retainer, they will shut down their search. Their psychology now changes from I need help to relief. You need to give them that relief that they found the person to help them, so that they can go ahead and start focusing on their other daily life, things that they do in their life, rather than stressing out on, I haven't found the right attorney yet. So if you're getting a yes and you're not collecting a payment on the spot or engagement letter signed, you are not helping your client out the way that you should. That should be the mindset.
I love that. I think I'm kind of laughing in my head as you're talking through that, because we recently had like a consultation best practices meeting with our lawyers. And Gen Krilikis, who's in our Wilmington office, one of my partners, he always ends the conversation with, are you ready to move forward right now? I'm going to send you an email. Click that. I'm going to pull up an invoice. We're ready to take a payment. And he's the only one that was doing that. All the rest of us have basically the follow-up of like, hey, I'm going to send you the engagement contract. Once you sign that, then my billing assistant will send you a copy of our invoice, and much lower kind of conversion rate, because people will and I think that the trickery of it is, it's like the person's like, oh, I'd love to move forward with you, can you please send me your like what the next steps are. But like you said, no matter how committed you are or seemingly committed in that moment, it's kind of a you got to put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, on the client's end of things, if you're kind of pushing it in that route. So I'll definitely be, Gint's already told me to change my ways, and now I feel like I gotta follow through on that at this point.
That's the easiest thing that I can tell people to switch, and that right there will be, take your yearly revenue right now and multiply that by 115%. That's how much more you'll make with this one change, guaranteed.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it.
Now, another tip, another one.
Definitely.
The second most important thing that consultation specialists and attorneys miss is you guys do not get the urgency right. It's the number one missed sales, let's say, discussion that is missed on a regular basis. Now, we all think in your line of practice area here, oh, they have a court date. The urgency is there. They're going to have to move. Well, guys, that is surface level urgency. That, guess what? The attorney they spoke to before that knew that. The attorney after them knew that. They know that. But why didn't they choose you if that's so apparent? Because we can't sell people based on the urgency that we know that is clear to us, because it's not their urgency, right? So the urgency is not the court date. The urgency is what happens if you don't find the right attorney. What will happen to your job, your family, your living situation? What happens to, maybe whatever that you're working on in your life that matters? That's urgency, right? And urgency needs to come from them and not from you. So good attorneys that I coach now that have really high conversions, we want to be able to ask them questions surrounding their urgency so that they at the end don't say, let me think about it.
Hmm. Yeah, I
So
think
that's number
that's
two is the urgency. And another quick tip, which leads into number three actually, is the urgency you have to get before you go into price. The other thing you have to get before you tell them the price is ask them for objections. Now, most people are scared of objections because they think I'm going to bring up doubt. That's not true at all. These people are thinking it whether you talk about it or not. Now, if you don't talk about it, they're going to hide from it, not tell you about it because maybe that you haven't built enough trust for them to even be open about it. And they're going to give you a false objection, not even the correct one. And they're going to get off the phone with you and then you're never going to sell. And they're going to ghost you. That's what happens most of the time. But so you want to be able to get the urgency and the impact, and then you want to ask them an objection question. And for me, always the same. Jake, outside of everything that we talked about today with your criminal case and everything that you have on the line, which is super stressful, what would prevent you from signing with an attorney that you really wanted that you wanted to work with today? And then I need to clear all those objections. The only objection I want is price. And as soon as they say price, got it. I totally get it. Let me tell you how all this works and go over the price with you. And then you go right back into your process. But the objection we have to get before we go into selling the price, because the moment that you give them the price, and if you did a good job before, you were an advisor to them, right? Asking them good questions, building rapport in a relationship. They really like you. But as soon as you say, you got to give me $5,000, they go, oh, this guy's selling me again, right? Then he has all these objections he can pull out because you didn't ask him for what it was. And then it's a tougher battle at that point. So it's very critical to get the urgency and ask for objections before you guys give them the price.
Do you have any questions that you recommend for kind of like digging into the urgency situation? Like how do you kind of uncover what again, not what the seeming urgency would be, but what that person's urgency is?
Sure. It's always better to role play these situations. That's how I like to do it. So Jake, give me a criminal matter that I'm calling your law firm for. Or you're calling
we kind of focus on DWI, so I'll go that.
Got it. Route. Okay. So Jake, everything that you told me here, tell me a little bit about, if this case doesn't go your way, this potential DWI that you have, how does it affect your personal life, your job, your career? Tell me about how that looks.
Yeah, if I lose my driver's license, then that's gonna probably mean a loss of employment. I haven't talked with my employer yet, but if I lose my license, I don't think I'm gonna be able to keep my job.
Okay. Now, what happens even if you don't get convicted of this, but your employer finds out that this is an open case?
I don't know, and that makes me nervous a little bit, but I think is if there's not a conviction, then they're not going to be too worried about it. It's more just me having the ability to get back and forth to work.
Okay. And you had mentioned earlier that you're the sole breadwinner of the family, right? You're the only one that works. Your wife is a stay-at-home mom, probably does a great job at it. But what happens to you and your family? Let's say you get convicted and you're not able to work.
Yeah, I mean, I'll find some place to work, but it'd definitely be a potential issue in terms of being able to get the same amount of money because my current job is pretty solid.
Okay. And you had mentioned earlier that your court date is scheduled for 2 months from now, seemingly a little bit of a long time. However, you probably want to get as much time as you can so the attorney, hopefully us, can start building a case to maybe even get a plea out and get this kind of maybe removed potentially before you even go to court, or have my team, get the time. And again, I'm not a criminal attorney, so in this part, you guys would do better than me. But the idea is to bring out the true urgency of the situation. It's not the court date, guys. It's how this is going to affect their life. Because not being able to feed his kids, not being able to pay his mortgage, or these things, right? Or him losing a job and having to find a job, that's urgency.
Yeah, and I think that's something that has really changed in terms of you've talked a lot about in the past, kind of like, people don't buy really like based on they're not making these kind of hiring decisions based on like the facts. It's based on emotion. And
Yeah.
I think that so many times in my consultations in the past, it's like if I can give you the client like this amazing overview of like how much I know about DWI law and all
Yeah.
of the like intricacies of that, then you'll know that I'm a smart lawyer and you'll come aboard. And I think some of that is true. Like I think that you need to show that you're like have a mastery of the subject matter. But there's definitely been times, particularly in the past, where it was, here's the reason I'm a great lawyer without really delving into how is this going to impact your life? Like what is the what kind of family needs do you have going on? Like, how are you taking care of your kids? Do they have any specific, educational, physical disabilities? What is going on, in your job situation? How important is it to have like a driver's license? Can we work around that? But really kind of focusing on where's the concern point, because some people just their biggest concern is I don't want to go to court. Like if I am so nervous about stepping foot in a courthouse. And so whatever the outcome is, like if it includes not having to walk into the courthouse, then it's like a big win on that person's end. Or, I'm about to be deployed and I need to make sure that this thing, that I'm not called and failed. The military is going to get on me if this thing doesn't get continued until I'm able to come back and resolve it. I mean, there's all kinds of different like pressure points, obviously, but I think so often we can kind of gloss over like why is this important to you? Like what's at stake? What are you worried about? And the anxiety about the situation really is that like underpinning of the feeling side of things. It's
Yeah.
like, here's how I feel about this. And if you can address that and get the person to breathe, relax, like, I mean, then, you've really done something, I think, critical in terms of like getting the buy-in on their front versus just like, hey, we're really smart, great at what we do. It's like, yeah, but is that going to help me?
Yeah. And I think you kind of point out a few good things in there that you may not realize. I mean, everything you're talking about is building a strong relationship,
Yeah.
right? It's building trust. People buy from people they know, they like, and they trust, right? So if you're a referral only, great, they know you. Then you just have to get them to like and trust you. Now, if they're finding you online, which most people are, right, for criminal attorneys, I'm assuming mostly, now they don't know you, so you can't win that one, right? Now you have to get them to like you and trust you in a 30 or 45-minute time frame, and then want to be able to give you money, right? So yes, you have to really get deep into and get asked really good questions. And it goes back to really kind of sales 101 is that we can't sell them what we sell them, right? What we want to sell them. And that's why most attorneys who are very transactional in nature of the information, they typically don't do so well, right? Because people don't buy off of transactional information. We buy off emotions. It happens every day, all the time. 90 something percent of decisions are made emotionally. That's why we have such a divide in our country for certain things, and to not get political, but that's exactly what it is, right? When you go buy a car at the dealership, the number one thing they want you to do is test drive that car. That is not transactional. That is emotional as hell, right? Because you get in that car and then, you picture yourself driving it, to work on your way home. And then all of a sudden you sit down with the finance guy and you're like, all right, well, it's going to cost this much more. Your interest rate is this much higher than you thought. And then in your mind, you go, man, but I really like that car. And then you go, probably out of my budget, but I'm going to buy it anyway, because then your emotional mindset takes over. And it's not, and I've spoken to some very non-sales people, and their justification to not doing this is that I don't want to manipulate people. You're actually not. We can't create emotion for people. We're just kind of having them find clarity on their situation, which is going to involve emotion. But we're also going to want to support that with educational information from the attorney, like you said. You have to be able to show your authority and your knowledge based on what you do as well. So the combination of you helping them find clarity in their emotions and the decisions, and showing them that you are the right person because you actually care about them and are not just somebody that's walking in, is going to make a world of difference when it's time for me to go, you know what? Yeah, I met with somebody. They're a little bit cheaper than Jake, but you know what? I just trust this guy way more. He's actually going to show up when I need him to show up. He's going to go to court for me. He's going to do these things. I just don't feel like the other guy is going to do that. I'm going to pay more, right? Think about anybody who's listening to this call. Have we ever paid more, knowingly paid more for something we were buying because we knew that person was just did an awesome job, right? We do it all the time. We tip people more than other people sometimes. That's a sale, right? They're giving you a service. So we all do it, and we have to be able to get into the mindset where when we're selling people at our law firm, they need to buy because of two main reasons. One of them is because I really, really like and trust the guy that I'm speaking to. You're a salesperson, they can buy because of them, right? The other one is the value that you give and explain and show that your law firm will give them. Those are the two main things. Now, if you could do both, you're going to have super high conversions. But people have bought from me my entire life doing sales because I was super honest, trustworthy, transparent, and I actually cared about every person I sold, never sold anything that I wouldn't take in their situation, right? So if your salespeople have that mentality and they really, and you can tell when people really believe in your firm, right? You can tell the difference when they're speaking about it. Everybody's got to buy in, right? They got to confidently buy in. So because if they don't translate that to whoever they're sitting with, trust me, they're not going to buy, right? Hey, I think you should sign with us. I think we'll do a good job, right? People don't want to hear that. So people they're going to buy, and they will buy because your salesperson is awesome. And they'll also buy because they were able to really show the value of working with your law firm. And that could be in many different ways, right? Your law firm could be a tech focused law firm. Your communication could be stellar compared to everybody else. You may have a fully built out team, right, for working process and communication rather than the one-man show down the street. Or the other perception is you're the one-man show. So you value and you be with them all the time. Everything is a perception change, right? But whatever that value is that you have, you got to be able to show that to your potential new clients.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's huge. Yeah. I think that I think showing the value again is, I think what I used to do is try to show the value without understanding what the pain point was for the client.
Your value.
It's like here's how great we are, but it's kind of like, well, again, none of that matters if this is what my concern is. So I think like digging at those pain points through a conversation about like,
yeah.
But and again, some of this can be scripted out, but you also just have to like kind of dig deep into it. I mean, a lot of it can be scripted out, but like it's like, you just got to keep kind of asking, what's the real concern point here? Like where are we going to really have an issue life-wise? And again, it's just so different for different people. Some people don't want to go to court. Some people are like, I've got a serious substance use issue that I'm dealing with, and the court stuff doesn't even really matter. I just need to get my life right, and or I'm going to lose my marriage. Some people, it's like, if I can't contemplate spending any time in jail. Like, is there any solution to where I don't have to do that? This is my third case. I know the consequences are bad. Like, what are there options out there? I mean, I think everybody has that different pain point. And so again, I think it's more just like knowing that first before being like, okay, here's how we can, kind of deliver on that.
And here's a better idea for the listeners out there that do consultations. And I'll ask you, Jake, how many consultations have you sat through in your life?
It's got to be like 3,000 or 4,000. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably not too many new situations that you haven't encountered. Fair?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because the DWI cases are definitely interesting because but I mean, it's within a realm, they're all the same ballpark.
So because it's within a realm, better than you telling them this is what's going to happen step by step. Tell them a story. Be like, Jake, because what their concern is. Jake, I totally understand what your concern is of this and this. Don't worry. I've actually worked with a client recent, right? This is what we did. This is his issue. Similar to yours. This is what we did to help him. This is the end result that we got him, and this is what his life was like afterwards, right? So tell him a story rather than tell him how the steps were. It's more powerful because if you do that, you just got me to test drive working with you.
Yeah, that's
Right. You
awesome.
told me, you showed me, I understand your situation because you told me you understood this other guy's situation that was similar to mine. Now, in my mind, I'm putting myself through this story that you're telling because I'm connecting with that person because it's the similar story. Then again, it stays emotional instead of transactional, but you can still layer in that with some of their transactional lawyer steps that you want to point out, but in a way where they can still connect it and stay on the emotional mindset of decision making that you want them in.
Yeah, I've definitely got to get better about that because I do think people really connect with stories. I mean, a
Yep.
lot more than they connect with information. And so the kind of putting yourself in the same shoes as that third party client that's already experienced recent success, whether that's in the courtroom or in life, whatever it might be, it's like that is such a that's the test drive of the car
Yep.
for the criminal defense firm is like that, here is what this looks, smells, and feels like, if you come out of this, in a bad place, and this is what this looks, smells, and feels like if you come out of this, with things going as we're planning it. I think those third party stories are huge.
Yeah, because they're going to be able to listen and follow those stories. Because the flip side is what I've seen a lot is you're going to tons of transactional information about
Yeah,
technical stuff that they will forget as soon as they probably hang up the phone anyway. But what will happen is it's called analysis paralysis, right?
yeah,
You all of a sudden you fed them all these things that they weren't even thinking about. Now they got to think about all these extra steps and these things that now they're even more worried than they before. And now they're like, oh man, I got to make the right decision. I got to think about this. I didn't think about any of this other stuff yet,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
That's
you kind
huge.
of fall to that trap if you give way too much information, which I've definitely seen before. So yes, you got to keep it human. You got to keep
Yeah,
that, keep the conversation. And again, the idea is that what you were saying before is you want to get to the root, right? Get to the root, you have to ask clarifying questions. Now, when you're asking clarifying questions, you're getting down to the root of their urgency, the root of their pain, the root of all these things, which is what you want, not surface level. But it also does two other things too. It gets them to get full understanding of their situation so that they can better make a decision now rather than a week from now.
hmm,
You, as their attorney, get to understand their situation at a much higher level. So think about how deep that relationship is built in a short period of time when you can do that. Now, here's the other thing. Jake, if I did that with you for 45 minutes and you did an amazing job and I really like you, do I want to go do that with the next person?
no, no,
No,
100% no. Yeah, I
no,
mean it's not
right?
fun talking
No,
through all
no,
this
it's not.
stuff. I mean it's yeah, from the client's perspective, it's like a
It's a relief.
yeah, it's a relief to have
It's a
that.
relief
Yeah,
to
it
find
is.
the right attorney
Yeah,
who understood what I wanted, what I needed, and they actually point out other stuff that I didn't even realize in a way that I can comprehend, then I can see value in, right? So building that trust through that time you have is super important.
yeah, 100%. Um, yeah, love that. I think let's maybe let me ask you this to somewhat close with Tony. So in terms of you've got somebody that's listened to this whole episode and they love all of the information, but it's like, what is a kind of good starting point if they like turn off the phone, turn off the podcast that they're listening to, shut down the computer, they're sitting at their desk, what is one question that they can ask themselves that will help improve their conversion rate? Like, what's the number one question that they should sit down and kind of be mulling over?
So I would say the number one most important question that I answer for my clients who don't realize the answers in front of them is how much money you're actually losing through your poor conversions.
Mm.
That will motivate pretty much anybody that I speak to. Because
That's
from
great.
there, you'll have the motivation to do what you should on the sales process, which is hire salespeople, have a sales process, have a training, and then collect data and metrics so that you can fix and optimize as you go. But you got to know how much you're losing first,
I love
right?
that. Yeah, I think that is a hugely powerful question. I kind of wasn't expecting that to be like that mind blowing, but that is like one of those things where when you can attach like a real number to it and
Yeah.
say, this is what I'm leaving on the table.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that's a big deal because I think that again for most of us, the thing that I will like maybe just kind of like offer as 2 cents and feel free to like point anything out on this front, but the whole kind of like thought process of me in terms of this conversation was you don't need more calls, you just need better conversion. And to some extent, the more calls that you get into the office, the less time that you have. Like, I mean, if you've got just like one call coming in after the next, where you're either failing to convert that person or they call and it's not a good lead. I mean, whatever that is, like the more calls that you have, the less time that you have. So if you are able to do more with less calls, then you've really freed up your bandwidth. And so I feel like, that also along with like, what am I financially leaving on the table by not converting at a higher rate? It's also like, how much time am I spending on the phone or, kind of chasing the next marketing system when I could just be like, we've got enough business as it is, but I'm just converting at a higher level. So like the time suck of being bad at conversions is really problematic.
Yeah. So first thing is get an analysis on your sales process and your marketing at the same time. Figure out has the bigger problem. I would say 8 out of 10 times it's going to be sales. I've just seen it most of the time. And then that's the information, all the information you need so that you can make a change. Last tip is that most people I see in law firm owners, you guys have the same size or same cost in your sales department when you were at 500K than when you're at 1 million and 1.5. Guys, your sales team has to grow with your law firm. Just like your marketing should be a percentage of your revenue, your sales department should also be a percentage of your revenue as well. And it should grow simultaneously with your revenue as it increases so that you can always stay super efficient. So like Jake said, I've seen it where you have one salesperson and a ton of calls that come in, they're burning through leads because they can only take so many calls anyway. And they're just getting their cherry picking because they have so many, because at 150 leads, you probably should have had 2 or 3 intake people. Yeah. And then you would have making a lot more money. So we got to keep an eye on growing our law firms, right? Strategically in all our different departments. Right, we need to know again our cost associated with scaling. You can't scale unless you plan for it, and you got to be able to know those numbers and have those percentages of your different departments like marketing and sales.
Love it. Yeah, that's great. I think being ahead of the curve on that front as opposed to behind the curve, again, you're probably more likely to land the right salesperson because you're kind of being proactive about it versus like oh my gosh, like the calls are overwhelming and we're playing from behind. So I love that. I think that's huge.
And if you think about it in your sales department, if you are kind of more invested in that, you're always going to make out ahead. Because if you have less people, you're going to be losing revenue. Now, if your sales team, even if you have one extra intake person and you hire them and they're going to be overseas, let's just say you can hire them direct for $1,500. So for $1,500, I'm making sure that I'm maximizing all my sales conversions, and I'm making, let's say my sales department is only 10% of my overall revenue. Guys, you're winning. You're never going to be in jeopardy of overspending in that way, of being slightly overstaffed or, in your sales, right? So just as a tip, like have your people, and a way to keep your sales team in a good percentage, especially earlier on, guys, is the idea is that for me, intake people, whether US or overseas, I don't care. I've seen them both successful in both ways. Right. But I know that in the future, if I have a high volume law firm, I'd rather have my intake people be overseas because I can go direct, pay them like $1,500 after all bonuses are said and done a month. And then I can spend more money on a consultation specialist who is definitely a higher skilled salesperson in the US. Right. Because then that balances out my sales team and what I'm spending in that department, because I can spend more on the true closure that I know I need a lot more sales ability than intake people who you can replace with a good sales process. And it's easier to do that sale. Much, much easier. I can replace those guys in a week. Easy. Train them, rehire them in a week, train them in a couple weeks. They're good to go. But a consultation closer, guys, that is not someone that comes by too easy. Right. So that's how you can balance out your spend in your sales departments, is if you go kind of that route. because I've seen some very overpaid intake people before, and to me, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. I think as you sit down after listening to this at your desk and you're asking, how much money am I leaving on the table? If you don't know the answer to that question, that's problematic. But give Tony a call and he'll tell you exactly how much money you're leaving on the table. So hopefully we can connect here shortly. Again, I shared obviously at the beginning of the podcast about our upcoming webinar that you're going to be hosting on intake. So obviously all intake professionals, anybody in marketing, obviously firm owners are invited to that. And then Tony, look forward after that to seeing you at the summit in October. So thanks very much for coming on. I appreciate all the information.
You got it, Jake. Thanks for having me, man. Great questions on your side.